Bodybuilding, dedication, pushing past your limits. But how much can the human body really take? In this video, we're diving into the stories of athletes who lived life on the edge and paid a heavy price for it. These are real stories, raw, eye-opening. They reveal the dark side of a sport driven by looks, pressure, and obsession. Do you think chasing perfection has a limit? Or is it all fair game in the fight to be the best? Get ready to rethink what it means to sacrifice, to strive, and to face the consequences no one likes to talk about. If you truly love bodybuilding, this video is for you. Now, take a deep breath and let's go. Mohamad Benaziza, the tragedy of a body sculpted to the limit. Mohamad was born in 1959 in Algeria, and from an early age, he stood out for his compact yet incredibly dense physique. Standing at just 1.58 meters, about 5 feet 2 inches, he quickly earned the nickname the Little Giant. What he lacked in height, he more than made up for with full, defined, and perfectly proportioned muscles. On stage, his presence was so striking that he often outshined athletes twice his size. He began his career on the European amateur circuit, gaining recognition in the 1980s. His obsession with aesthetics and extreme definition caught the eye, especially at IFBB competitions. The mix of symmetry, muscle density, and insane vascularity made him a feared competitor. In 1990, he had his breakthrough moment by winning the Night of Champions, defeating big-name pros and cementing his place in the professional scene. Despite his shorter stature, Mohamad never let it hold him back. His goal was to be the most defined, the most balanced physique on stage, following a philosophy similar to Frank Zane's, but with much more density. Every inch of his body was chiseled to perfection. Deep cuts, full muscle bellies, and paper-thin skin that clung to every fiber. He wasn't the biggest, but many said he was the most perfect. Between 1990 and 1992, Mohamad competed in several editions of the Mr. Olympia and other top-tier events, consistently standing out for his incredible conditioning. His friendly rivalries with larger competitors showed the respect he commanded. He wasn't a flashy media star like some champions, but within the professional ranks, he was a technical legend. And in bodybuilding, being respected by your peers sometimes means more than mainstream fame. Behind the scenes, his work ethic was legendary. Mohamad was known for his brutal discipline with diet and dehydration, pushing his body to extremes to present the driest, most shredded look on stage. This relentless pursuit of maximum definition became his signature, but was also a dangerous path that began to show serious warning signs. Though he never won the Mr. Olympia, Mohamad built a solid reputation as the man with impossible conditioning. He was the guy every competitor feared facing on stage, because his dialed-in physique was on a whole different level. His name became synonymous with extreme conditioning, inspiring countless young athletes to chase that same level of perfection. But as his story shows, that pursuit would come at a devastating cost. Mohamad's relentless quest for extreme definition had a dangerous secret: heavy diuretic use. Back then, substance regulation was lax, and he would dehydrate his body to frightening levels to achieve his signature shredded look. Potent diuretics, severe diets, and electrolyte manipulation were all part of his prep. He knew the risks, but pressed on, believing it was the necessary price for greatness. In October 1992, after competing in the Grand Prix of Holland, Mohamad started feeling unwell. Despite his condition, he refused medical help. The tough it out mindset was ingrained in bodybuilding culture. He thought it was just normal exhaustion, expected after weeks of harsh dieting and dehydration. But his body was sounding the alarm. It was clear it couldn't take another cycle of abuse. That night, after the competition, Mohamad was found unconscious in his hotel room. Despite attempts to revive him, he didn't make it. He passed away at just 33 years old, succumbing to total organ failure. The excessive use of diuretics, combined with extreme physical exhaustion, was the fatal blow. His sudden death shocked the bodybuilding world as it lost one of its finest athletes in an instant. The autopsy revealed a grim picture. His organs were in complete disarray. His kidneys were saturated and failing, His electrolyte balance was dangerously off, and his heart was severely strained. The extreme dehydration had drastically reduced his blood volume, making it nearly impossible for vital organs to function. On the outside, Mohamad's physique looked flawless, but internally, his body was in total collapse. His case was particularly impactful because it happened right after competition, right at the peak of his career. Unlike other athletes who succumbed later in life, Mohamad died in the heat of battle, a direct victim of his own relentless dedication. His death sparked urgent discussions about diuretic abuse in bodybuilding, but it also exposed a toxic culture of silence and the glorification of suffering among athletes. Mohamad's death left a deep scar in the bodybuilding world. Despite his brilliant career, he came to be remembered as a stark example of the fatal consequences of blind pursuit of aesthetic perfection. What was once admired as unwavering dedication began to be seen as a cautionary tale, a brutal reminder of what happens when the quest for the perfect physique turns into a limitless obsession. He was the first major case to brutally expose the true cost of extreme conditioning. Even without a Mr. Olympia title, Mohamad was immortalized as the Little Giant, a legend among those who truly understand what peak conditioning means. His muscle density and insane detail are still used as benchmarks for athletes chasing the elusive perfect dry look. But alongside that inspiration, his story carries a painful warning. The human body has limits, and crossing them can cost you your life. The shock of his death was so profound that it forced changes in how diuretic use is discussed in the sport. While the problem hasn't been eradicated, Benaziza's tragedy brought to light the urgent need for stricter monitoring, better awareness around extreme dehydration, and more medical oversight at competitions. His death was a wake-up call, but the question remains, have we truly learned from it? Within bodybuilding culture, Mohamad is remembered with a mix of respect and sadness. He represents the darkest side of the no pain, no gain mentality, where pain and sacrifice weren't balanced with common sense or health awareness. His story is still told today, not just as a tribute, but as a vital warning for new generations entering the sport. Beyond the stage, Benaziza has become a reference point in discussions about ethics and responsibility in bodybuilding. His case is frequently mentioned in seminars, medical articles, and documentaries, always as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked substance abuse. More than an athlete, he became a symbol of reflection on how far vanity and the pursuit of perfection can push us. Dallas McCarver, the broken promise. Picture this, a 14-year-old kid discovering an overwhelming passion for bodybuilding. That's how Dallas McCarver's story began. Born in 1991 in the U.S., while most kids his age were busy with football or basketball, Dallas found his true calling in the gym. With every workout, his physique transformed in ways that left people speechless, thanks to his crazy genetics and relentless work ethic. By the time he was 21, Dallas had already achieved what most athletes take decades to reach. He became a professional bodybuilder. His rise wasn't some lucky break. It was the result of laser-sharp focus and discipline from the moment he first touched a weight. In no time, he stood out as one of the biggest up-and-coming stars in the world, with experts hailing him as the next big thing in the sport. The turning point of his career came in 2012, when Dallas won the NPC North American Championships. This wasn't just a trophy, it was his official ticket to compete with the Giants. His stage presence, muscle symmetry, and sheer size made him stand out, even among seasoned veterans. Success kept rolling in. In 2016, he took home the title at the prestigious IFBB California Pro, firmly cementing his spot among the elite. Every show he entered, Dallas kept leveling up, denser, sharper, more complete. People couldn't help but wonder, how far could this kid go? Could he be the next Mr. Olympia? Beyond his physique, Dallas had something rare, charisma. On social media, he built a massive fan base by sharing his workouts, meals, and personal thoughts on bodybuilding. Despite his monster build, he remained humble and down-to-earth, which made people connect with him on a personal level. Experts and fans were all in on his potential. Many believed it was just a matter of time before Dallas hit the Mr. Olympia stage as a top contender. His combination of size, definition, and spot-on proportions was a rare gem, even in such a competitive sport. But as we know, the path to greatness doesn't always follow the script. With a promising career and a bright future ahead, Dallas McCarver seemed destined to raise the bar for bodybuilding. His journey was just getting started, and the entire fitness world was watching as a legend took shape. Then came 2017, a pivotal year, but not in the way people had hoped. During his prep for the Arnold Classic Australia, one of the sport's biggest events, Dallas started facing serious health issues. A severe respiratory infection hit hard, affecting his performance and raising red flags about his condition. Despite being sick, Dallas chose to step on stage, showing a level of grit that left everyone in awe. But the infection had seriously weakened his lungs, and it showed. At one point, he nearly collapsed, visibly exhausted and struggling just to stay upright. The crowd and judges watched in shock, torn between admiration and deep concern. His appearance at the Arnold Classic Australia became a wake-up call. Though he finished the show, it was clear his health was in danger. The incident sparked a much-needed conversation in the bodybuilding community. Is it worth risking your well-being to keep climbing the ranks? Dallas's case forced everyone to face that uncomfortable question. After the event, Dallas took a step back to focus on recovery. But even with doctors' advice, his attitude stayed the same, pure resilience. In interviews and online, he played it down, promising to come back stronger. That warrior mindset was inspiring, but also worried friends and fans who sensed that something more serious was going on. But Dallas's health issues didn't just come out of nowhere. The extreme lifestyle of elite athletes puts constant strain on the body. Strict diets, brutal training sessions, and the use of performance-enhancing substances are part of the sport's reality. For Dallas, it was no different. He was living life on the edge, chasing physical perfection without fully considering what it was doing to his body. The Arnold Classic Australia incident was a harsh reminder that even the strongest athletes are human. The body has its limits. Push too far, and the consequences can be devastating. Despite his health struggles, Dallas refused to slow down. His competitive spirit was stronger than caution, and his love for bodybuilding kept him pushing forward. But in August 2017, the bodybuilding world was rocked by heartbreaking news. Dallas McCarver passed away suddenly at just 26 years old. A rising star at the peak of his career, with a future full of promise, gone too soon. The official cause of death was heart failure, but the circumstances left everyone in shock. The autopsy report revealed alarming details. Dallas's heart was significantly enlarged, a clear sign of the toll that years of extreme physical demands had taken. There were also signs of possible choking while eating, suggesting he might have suffocated during a meal. This combination of factors painted a grim picture of how far the quest for peak performance can push a body. Dallas's death wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was a wake-up call for the entire bodybuilding community. So many athletes live on the edge, pushing their bodies way past healthy limits for the sake of aesthetics and competition. His case forced a tough question into the spotlight. What's the real price of physical perfection? Is it worth sacrificing your health, even your life, for a podium or a few viral photos? Despite his short career, Dallas McCarver left a lasting legacy. His discipline, dedication, and passion inspired thousands of young athletes around the world. He was seen as the face of a new generation, proof that with hard work and laser focus, extraordinary things were possible. Even after his passing, his story continues to motivate bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts alike. The impact of his death also sparked much-needed conversations about what really happens behind the scenes in professional bodybuilding. Topics like substance use, mental health pressure, and neglecting personal well-being started gaining more attention. Coaches, organizations, and athletes began rethinking their practices, slowly realizing that success should never come at the cost of someone's life. In a way, Dallas's sacrifice shined a spotlight on a long overdue reality check. Tributes flooded social media. Friends, Fans and fellow athletes shared stories, photos, and heartfelt messages about how Dallas had touched their lives. It became clear that beyond his massive physique, he was remembered for his humility, generosity, and genuine love for the sport. His untimely passing left a void, but also delivered a powerful message about the dangers of unchecked obsession. Dallas McCarver's story is both inspiring and cautionary. He showed us what's possible when you give it your all, but his tragic death reminds us that health must always come first. Rich Piana, the king of brutal honesty. Rich was born in 1970 in the United States and fell in love with bodybuilding from a very young age. With a bodybuilder mom, he grew up surrounded by gyms, admiring massive muscles and freaky physiques early on. This passion pushed him into competing as a teenager, but Rich's real spotlight came outside the stage. Unlike most, he wasn't chasing trophies. He was after something more real, a genuine connection with his audience. What truly set Rich apart was his brutal honesty. In a world where steroid use was a dirty little secret, he became one of the first athletes to openly admit it. No sugarcoating, no BS. Rich would straight up talk about his dosages, side effects, and the consequences of his choices. His famous line, "Yes, I use steroids, and I'd do it all over again," became iconic. It shocked a lot of people, but it also earned him massive respect. His motto, "Whatever it takes," summed up his whole philosophy. For Rich, building an extreme physique meant sacrifices, and everyone deserved to know the risks before stepping into that world. This raw, no-filter approach made him a beacon of honesty in a sea of fake promises. To a lot of young lifters, Rich wasn't just a bodybuilder. He was the realest guy in the room. His popularity exploded with social media. Rich's videos, mixing workout tips, life advice, and brutally honest rants, went viral fast. He wasn't just some jack guy flexing for likes. He spoke the language of the people, unfiltered, unpolished, real. That authenticity made him stand out in a fitness industry obsessed with perfect images. To many, he was the approachable giant, someone you could learn from, laugh with, and actually relate to. But Rich wasn't just an influencer. He built the 5% nutrition brand, based on the idea that only 5% of people are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their dreams. The brand became a hit, selling supplements, apparel, and, more importantly, a mindset. Rich wasn't just selling products. He was selling an all-in lifestyle of dedication and hustle. Even so, Rich was full of contradictions. While he promoted extreme physique development, he was also one of the loudest voices warning about the dangers of irresponsible steroid use. His videos were filled with reminders about health, regular blood work, and long-term thinking. That paradox, living on the edge but preaching awareness, was part of what made him so fascinating. Over time, though, Rich's body started to pay the price for decades of living in the red zone. After 25-plus years of steroid use, the side effects began to hit hard. Despite his massive strength and energy on camera, the internal damage was becoming irreversible. His heart, liver, and kidneys took the brunt of it, overwhelmed by heavy substances and long cycles. Have you ever wondered how long a body can endure that level of punishment? Even though he always acknowledged the risks, Rich stuck to his extreme lifestyle. In interviews, he made it clear he understood the consequences but chose to live life on his own terms. Some admired his brutal honesty. Others criticized it as reckless. Still, Rich kept getting his health checked regularly and urged others to do the same, fully aware that much of the damage couldn't be undone. Heart problems were the first to show serious warning signs. Years of steroids and growth hormones had significantly enlarged his heart, leading to breathing issues and constant fatigue. On the outside, Rich still looked like a beast, but inside his body was struggling to keep up. This stark contrast between appearance and reality raised a crucial question. How much is aesthetics really worth when it risks your life? His liver and kidneys also suffered from the long-term substance use. The liver, working overtime to process toxins, was under constant stress, while his kidneys, vital for filtering blood, were starting to fail. Despite it all, Rich kept grinding, intense workouts, heavy diets, aggressive supplements. For him, slowing down was never an option. Rich never hid his condition. In his videos, he openly talked about his bad blood work, the meds he was on, and even the doctor's advice he chose to ignore. He believed his mission was to show the raw truth, unfiltered, so people could make informed choices. This level of transparency was controversial, sure, but it also made him stand out in a fitness world full of sugar-coated stories and fake health gurus. Even while dealing with serious health problems, Rich stayed active on social media, filming videos and showing up at events. His famous motto, "Whatever it takes," took on a darker tone, reflecting his daily battle with the consequences of his choices. For him, living life with no regrets was the priority, even if that meant paying the ultimate price. In August 2017, Rich Piana's journey reached its most tragic chapter. After suddenly collapsing at home, he was rushed to the hospital and placed in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. As news of his condition spread, fans and followers flooded the internet with messages of concern. The bodybuilding community was shaken. Was this the inevitable end of a life pushed to extremes? The medical report confirmed everyone's worst fears. Rich's heart was massively enlarged, a direct result of years of heavy steroid and growth hormone use. While a healthy human heart weighs around 300 to 400 grams, 0.7 to 0.9 pounds, Rich's was nearly double that. This condition, known as cardiomegaly, severely impairs heart function and drastically increases the risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Rich had always talked about these risks, but now he was facing their ultimate consequence. Despite all efforts, Rich didn't make it. His death was officially recorded as heart failure. But for those who had followed his journey, it was clear this was the result of a life lived to the extreme. The cruel irony was that he had always been the first to warn about the dangers, yet he couldn't outrun them himself. His passing sparked an outpouring of tributes and reflections. Fans, friends, and even critics acknowledged his impact as one of the few brutally honest voices in bodybuilding. Rich wasn't just an athlete. He was an informal educator, showing people the harsh, unfiltered reality. His iconic quote, "I don't recommend this to anyone, but this was my choice," became a lasting symbol of his raw honesty. At the same time, his death became a loud warning about the dangers of substance abuse. Rich's story was used in countless debates, news reports, and documentaries as a textbook example of the human body's limits. For many young lifters, he became more of a cautionary tale than a role model, an example of what not to do. Even after his death, his brand 5% Nutrition and his videos continue to influence new generations. The message of hard work, focus, and relentless drive lives on, but now with a heavier undertone. The importance of understanding the risks that come with it. Rich Piana left behind a complex legacy, blending inspiration with a hard-hitting warning. And maybe that's exactly why his story still resonates so strongly today. Rich's story remains one of the most powerful lessons in bodybuilding, a brutal reminder of choices, consequences, and the importance of keeping it real. He lived loud, spoke the truth, and paid the price without ever hiding from it. Nasser El Sonbaty, Controversies and Harsh Truths. Nasser El Sonbaty was born in 1965 in Germany, and from a young age, he had a special connection with bodybuilding. With Egyptian and Yugoslav roots, his unique genetics quickly stood out on the world stage in the 90s. His blend of size, definition, and symmetry was truly impressive, turning heads at every competition. Unlike many athletes who only chase sheer mass, Nasser prioritized balance and harmony in his physique, earning respect from both fans and judges. Throughout the 90s, he cemented his place as one of the sport's biggest names, sharing the stage with legends like Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman. Nasser proved that it was possible to combine freaky muscle mass with classic aesthetics. His presence was unforgettable, not just for his towering physique, but also for his bold personality. He never held back his opinions, making him a polarizing yet highly respected figure. For many fans, Nasser embodied the modern golden era of bodybuilding. His work ethic was undeniable, and his intense, calculated training routines inspired countless young lifters. Beyond the gym, he was known for his sharp mind and eloquence, fluently speaking multiple languages and diving into complex topics with ease. Among his greatest achievements were multiple appearances at the Mr. Olympia, where he consistently ranked among the top competitors. Though he never claimed the coveted title, his performances were always praised for their quality and consistency. To many, Nasser was the ultimate uncrowned champion, a man who, despite everything, never went unnoticed on stage. He found great success at shows like the Night of Champions and the Arnold Classic, where his sheer density and balanced aesthetics made him nearly unbeatable. That rare combination became his trademark. But the question lingered: did the judges always appreciate his style as much as the fans did? Off stage, Nasser became known for his no-nonsense interviews. He didn't hesitate to call out shady industry practices, criticize contest results, or expose backstage politics. His blunt honesty earned him admirers, but also made him plenty of enemies. His attitude was seen by some as confrontational, but Nasser believed the truth needed to be told, no matter who it upset. Despite the challenges, Nasser built a remarkable career, filled with both accolades and controversies. His story is one of resilience and authenticity in a sport where surface-level glamour often hides harsh realities. The 1997 Mr. Olympia became the most controversial moment of Nasser's career. That year, he stepped on stage in the best shape of his life. Huge, symmetrical, and razor-sharp. Meanwhile, reigning champ Dorian Yates competed visibly injured, with a torn bicep that was hard to ignore. Yet, Dorian was still declared the winner, sparking outrage among fans, athletes, and experts alike. For many, Nasser's loss was a textbook case of backstage favoritism and corruption in bodybuilding. The judge's decision was so questionable that it became one of the year's hottest topics. True to his nature, Nasser didn't hold back. Soon after, he openly criticized not just the result, but the very integrity of the federation and its judging panels. He accused the sport of being sold out, claiming decisions were made behind closed doors long before the athletes hit the stage. His rivalry with Dorian Yates intensified after the Olympia. Nasser accused Dorian of being protected by the federation, implying his win was politically guaranteed. In interviews, he mocked Dorian's injured condition, arguing that in any other sport, a visibly hurt athlete wouldn't stand a chance. These bold statements turned a simple sporting rivalry into an all-out war of words. But Nasser didn't stop there. He began openly criticizing other major figures in bodybuilding. In one infamous interview, he called out athletes, judges, and federation officials by name, exposing what he saw as blatant favoritism and shady deals. For Nasser, it was unacceptable that hard work and talent were being ignored in favor of politics and money. His fearless attitude divided opinions, but showcased his unwavering commitment to speaking the truth. Of course, these actions came with consequences. Nasser quickly became labeled as a problem within the professional scene. Opportunities dwindled, invites stopped coming, and his relationship with the IFBB fell apart. Still, he stood his ground. For Nasser, staying true to his principles was far more important than fitting into a system he believed was broken. At the same time, Nasser became persona non grata to the federation. His fan base kept growing stronger and more loyal. His bold, no-nonsense attitude made him a symbol for those who wanted a more honest version of bodybuilding. He became the voice for those who had none. Openly discussing topics most people avoided out of fear of backlash. The 1997 controversy was a turning point. While it marked the start of his decline within the sports institutions, it also elevated Nasser to the status of a rebel icon, someone fighting against corruption in bodybuilding. After stepping away from competitions, Nasser stayed involved in the bodybuilding scene. But stepping off the stage didn't mean stepping away from extreme practices. He continued using anabolic steroids and other substances, partly for aesthetics, partly because of habits that had become deeply ingrained over the years. This long-term abuse eventually took a severe toll on his health. Over time, Nasser began facing serious health issues, especially with his kidneys and heart. Years of diuretics and steroids had wrecked his renal function, while his heart condition worsened steadily. Despite medical warnings and clear signs of trouble, Nasser stuck to his lifestyle. Out of pride, perhaps, but also because breaking free from years of extreme habits is no small feat. In 2013, at the age of 47, Nasser El Sonbaty passed away due to kidney and heart complications. For those who had followed his recent journey, it wasn't a shock, but it was still a heartbreaking loss for the bodybuilding world. An icon known not just for his incredible physique, but also for his courage to speak uncomfortable truths, was gone, leaving behind a legacy of both admiration and sorrow. But Nasser's legacy goes far beyond his titles or size. He will always be remembered as one of the few voices brave enough to pull back the curtain on bodybuilding's darker side. His brutal honesty opened the eyes of countless young athletes to the risks hiding behind shiny trophies. In a world where silence is often the norm, Nasser chose the harder path, the path of truth. Despite the controversies, his story still fuels important conversations about health, ethics, and the real limits of the human body. He forced people to ask the uncomfortable question: how far is it worth going in the pursuit of physical perfection? That question still echoes today, and Nasser's story remains a powerful reminder that not everything that shines is healthy. What do you think about that? On social media and bodybuilding forums, Nasser is still a reference point. Some see him as a hero for his fearless honesty. Others view him as a tragic example of what happens when limits are pushed too far. Either way, his influence lives on, sparking debates and inspiring new, more thoughtful approaches to the sport. The death of Nasser El Sonbaty marked the end of a fierce, intense journey, one filled with victories, controversies, and a relentless fight for transparency. His legacy goes far beyond competition stages. He left behind a message of awareness and reflection for everyone who loves bodybuilding. Shawn Rhoden, from triumph to tragedy. Shawn Rhoden was born in 1975 in Jamaica and faced challenges early on that would shape his journey. As a young man, he moved to the United States searching for better opportunities, but adapting to a new life wasn't easy. The death of his father hit him hard, plunging Shawn into a deep depression and a battle with alcoholism. For a while, it seemed like his dreams had been completely derailed. Everything changed when Shawn discovered bodybuilding as a way to rebuild himself. The discipline of training, the strict routine, and the constant pursuit of self-improvement became his sanctuary. Slowly, he rebuilt not just his physique, but also his mind and his life. What many see as just a sport of aesthetics was, for Shawn, a form of therapy, a path back to purpose. Through relentless effort, Shawn climbed the ranks of bodybuilding competitions. His physique stood out for its elegance, symmetry, and crisp definition, a nod to the golden age of bodybuilding. Unlike the trend of freakish mass, he focused on aesthetics, winning over fans and judges alike. His journey was all about steady evolution, always chasing his best version. The peak of his career came in 2018, when Shawn achieved the ultimate bodybuilding crown, the Mr. Olympia title. That year, he stunned the world by defeating Phil Heath, who was aiming for his 8th consecutive win. The victory was historic, not just for ending Phil's reign, but for the powerful story of personal triumph. From a lost kid to world champion, Shawn embodied resilience in its purest form. Beyond the title, Shawn earned respect for his humble, no-drama personality. He wasn't the loudest or the most controversial, but his work ethic and professionalism spoke volumes. Many saw him as a quiet inspiration, proof that you could rise to the top, even from humble beginnings and after facing massive adversity. But his reign would be short-lived. In 2019, Shawn's life took another harsh turn. He was accused of sexual assault, a scandal that exploded in the media. Instantly, his career came to a halt. Contracts were dropped, sponsorships vanished, and he was banned from major competitions, including the Mr. Olympia. The fallout was brutal, not just for him, but for the entire bodybuilding community, which found itself torn by the controversy. From that moment, Shawn faced a forced isolation. Even without a formal conviction, the social and professional consequences hit hard. His image, once tied to perseverance and success, was now tainted. Shawn's downfall after the 2019 accusations was as swift as his rise. With no competitions and no sponsors, his career crumbled within months. The psychological toll was immense. From hero to outcast, his public image took a near-fatal blow. Away from the spotlight and the structure of professional life, Shawn fought a different kind of battle, this time against depression and constant stress. While the bodybuilding world moved on, Shawn was fighting behind the scenes to clear his name and find a way to rebuild his life. But the scars from the accusations and his social exile ran deep. Close friends spoke of his profound sadness and the struggle to cope with such a sudden and devastating fall. For an athlete used to conquering physical challenges, the destruction of his reputation was an even heavier burden. In November 2021, at just 46 years old, Shawn Rhoden passed away from a massive heart attack. The news shocked the fitness community, but didn't surprise those aware of his struggles. The psychological pressure, combined with years of performance-enhancing substance use, had taken their toll. His heart, like so many athletes who live on the edge, simply couldn't handle the overload. Once again, bodybuilding had lost one of its brightest stars far too soon. Shawn's death sparked an outpouring of tributes, but also serious reflection on the dark side of the sport. Many pointed out how the mix of media pressure, public judgment, and the physical demands of elite competition creates a toxic environment. In Shawn's case, it was the perfect storm, emotional turmoil compounded by years of physical abuse. His story remains a stark reminder of how triumph and downfall can be dangerously intertwined in the pursuit of perfection. Despite his tragic end, Shawn Rhoden left behind a powerful legacy. He was one of the last Mr. Olympia champions to truly embody the classic aesthetic of bodybuilding, focusing on clean lines, balanced proportions, and symmetry rather than chasing sheer size. His physique in 2018 was seen by many as a tribute to the sport's golden era, bringing back an elegance that had been lost in the quest for mass monsters. But beyond the muscles, his story serves as a harsh reminder of how quickly a career at the top can crumble. Life at the peak is fragile, and the fall can be just as fast, if not faster, than the rise. Shawn's journey shows that in bodybuilding and in life, physical strength alone isn't enough. You need emotional support, legal protection, and a solid social foundation to withstand the pressures that come with success. Shawn Rhoden's name will forever be one of the most memorable in the sport, not only for his triumph, but also for his fall. His victory at the Mr. Olympia will always be celebrated, but will also stand as a cautionary tale about the challenges that go far beyond the stage. Andreas Münzer, the deadly pursuit of perfection. Andreas Münzer was born in 1964 in the small town of Pack, Austria. From a young age, he showed an extraordinary dedication to bodybuilding, always pushing himself to surpass his own limits. Inspired by fellow Austrian Arnold Schwarzenegger, Andreas set his sights on a vision of physical perfection where every muscle had to be sculpted with razor-sharp definition. His obsession with symmetry and ultra-low body fat would become his trademark. On stage, Andreas was known for his insane definition. While most athletes chase size, he was focused on displaying every muscle fiber in crystal-clear detail. His striations, popping veins, and paper-thin skin turned him into a legend at competitions like Mr. Olympia and the Arnold Classic. Even though he never claimed the top titles, he was admired and feared for the sheer quality of his physique. His look was considered nearly untouchable. To reach this level of conditioning, Andreas resorted to extremely aggressive methods. Diuretics, anabolic steroids, and other substances were staples in his prep routine. He never hid his relentless pursuit of perfection, even as warning signs piled up. Severe dehydration, brutal cramps, and wild blood pressure swings were treated as just part of the process. Munzer was famous for his relentless work ethic. His training was meticulous, and his diet was taken to extremes. Stories of him weighing every single gram of food and tracking every milliliter of water were common. This almost military-level discipline made him a symbol of dedication, but also sparked an uncomfortable question. How much is health worth sacrificing for an aesthetic ideal? What's your take on that? Despite clear signs that his body was suffering, Andreas refused to slow down. In fact, he doubled down on his efforts, determined to achieve absolute perfection. With each competition, he chased even more extreme levels of definition, ignoring the obvious risks. Friends, fellow athletes, and doctors warned him, but to Andreas, it was simply the price of greatness. The cruel paradox of Munzer's career was that the closer he got to visual perfection, the more he destroyed his health from the inside out. His kidneys and liver were under constant strain, his cardiovascular system struggled with extreme dehydration, and the warning signs of total collapse kept piling up. Still, he pressed on, driven by an obsession that could no longer tell the difference between success and self-destruction. That relentless pursuit of perfection took a devastating toll. In March 1996, at just 31 years old, Andreas began experiencing severe abdominal pain and overall sickness. Even while clearly unwell, he tried to stick to his routine, but his body was already in free fall. During a flight, he became seriously ill, racked with pain and showing signs of organ failure. What should have been just another trip turned into the beginning of a tragic end. Upon landing, Andreas was rushed to the hospital. The tests revealed a catastrophic situation. His liver was on the verge of total failure, wrecked by years of relentless substance use, diuretics, steroids, and more. His kidneys were failing too, unable to filter out the toxins building up in his system. The extreme dehydration from his competition preps only made things worse. Doctors fought to save him, but the damage was beyond repair. His body was so overwhelmed that even his internal organs showed signs of necrosis. Despite his flawless appearance, muscles etched like marble, Andreas's body was in complete systemic collapse. It was the ultimate cruel irony. On the outside, a picture of perfection. On the inside, a body shattered far beyond its limits. Autopsy reports revealed a grim picture. Andreas Munzer's liver had hardened into an unrecognizable mass of scar tissue. His kidneys, saturated with toxins, had completely failed, unable to perform even basic functions. On top of that, his heart was enlarged, overworked from years of metabolic stress and relentless substance use. Shortly after being admitted to the hospital, Andreas passed away, succumbing to multi-organ failure. It was a painful death, one that had been foreshadowed by years of ignored warning signs. The bodybuilding community was shaken to its core. Even with all the known risks of excessive diuretic and steroid use, few believed that an elite athlete of Andreas's caliber could meet such an end. His death brutally exposed the harsh reality of pushing the human body beyond its natural limits in the name of aesthetics. The image of the flawless athlete crumbled, revealing the fragile human beneath the muscle. Andreas's story became a landmark case, still referenced today as a stark warning about the dangers of extreme bodybuilding. His life and death are cited in medical journals, seminars, and discussions about ethics in sports. More than trophies and rankings, Andreas left behind a deeper question. How far is it worth going to chase an unattainable ideal? His tragic end opened many eyes, though the temptation to chase perfection at any cost still lingers in the sport. The death of Andreas Munzer at just 31 turned his legacy into something far greater than titles or accolades. He became a symbol of the fatal consequences of extreme aesthetic obsession in bodybuilding. His once celebrated dedication, seen as the pinnacle of discipline and perfectionism, is now viewed through a sobering lens. The unimaginable price the human body demands when pushed far beyond its natural limits. As we've seen in this video, the relentless pursuit of perfection in bodybuilding comes with a price, and often it's much higher than anyone imagines. The stories of Dallas McCarver, Nasser El Sonbaty, Piana, Shawn Rhoden, and Andreas Munzer aren't just tales of success and glory. They're also powerful warnings about the dangers of substance abuse, extreme pressure, and the fatal consequences of pushing beyond the body's limits. If you've made it this far, it's because you care about this sport and the truth behind the stage lights. So, I want to invite you to reflect. How far would you go to reach your goal? Would your health always come first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Your experience and perspective are crucial to making this conversation richer and more real. And if this video brought you valuable info, made you think, or opened your eyes to realities most people don't talk about, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps the channel a lot to keep creating serious, high-quality content for those who truly love bodybuilding, without sugarcoating anything. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. Here, we talk about the things no one else dares to, always with respect and solid information.